Okay, so I created a new document and then I'm going to paste my picture on it. I already copied it, but if you haven't copied it, you can just open it into Photoshop. Um, let's see, edit and paste. So here's the photo I'm going to be working with. I'm going to open my layers panel so you can see I have a background layer and layer 1 for my picture. You want those on separate layers. That's why I like to copy paste. Okay, so the next thing you'll do is select your magic wand. Now, Photoshop has the capability to guess what you're trying to select, especially if it's a portrait. So you can click select subject and it automatically selects it. But if you notice right here, it missed some of the hair, and I want to make sure that I kind of get those fuzzy edges because then it makes it look more realistic. So I'm going to click where it says select and mask, and this takes me into a masking mode. So everything selected in red is not part of my selection. So if you look as I zoom in here, we can kind of see that edge of the hairline. So you can add to your selection. This is the Refine Edge brush, which I use for this so that it tries to detect the edge that I'm trying to select or refine. So you can change this a little bit or click on Smart Radius so that and it's pretty good. So I'm just going to change this and I'm going to just draw along that edge right there. And as you can see, it added that hair back in. And then I'm going to do the same thing right along here. And there's a few little wispy hairs up here. So if I add those back in, it just looks better. It doesn't look like it's been cut out as much as if you don't do that. Sometimes I'm going to turn this off. Let's see if I can grab that area right there. Does not want to select what I want it to. So this is good. So I can show you what to do. So I'm going to use my lasso tool and say add to a selection, which is this first option. And then I can actually physically draw around that and say, hey, put that back in my selection here so that it doesn't look funky. So I just really quick, I double check that I have everything selected that I want selected, making sure like his ear isn't cut off. So I might just run my brush over that. And for the most part, that looks pretty good. That's why it's nice if you use a solid background. It automatically kind of detects, oh, we have a little bit of his jacket down here that's missing, but automatically detects what you're trying to select if you have that solid background. Then it makes this process a lot easier. If you had, say, trees behind him, it would have a harder time trying to guess what you're trying to select. Okay, so that looks pretty good there. And I'm going to go ahead and hit OK down here. And now it shows me what I have selected. So the next thing we want to do is delete the background color. So I'm going to right click and hit select inverse, which means select the opposite of what I had selected, and then just hit my delete key. And now we have cleared the background. And then you can push Command D to get rid of your marching ants. And then I'm actually going to move him down just a little bit so that his head's not right at the top of the picture. And you could resize here just by dragging things in and out. I like his arms crossed, so I'll leave those in. We're going to change our background color to black. So you'll need your paint bucket and then change this color to black. Or if you wanted a different color, it's totally up to you. I'm going to go with black, and I just click, and now my background layer is black. This layer is still him, and we're going to add a new layer on top of that. And I just click this button down here, which is to add a new layer. If you can't find your layer panel, it's two sheets stacked on top of each other. If you still can't find it, go up to Window and click on Layers, and it will open this panel for you. This is one of the biggest things in Photoshop, is learning how to use your layers. It makes things a lot simpler. So the next thing we're going to do is actually desaturate this. So you can use your sponge tool. So I make sure it's on the sponge, make sure your mode is desaturate and flow is 100%. And then make sure you're on this layer that he's on. And then as you just drag it around, you are sucking the color out of everything in the picture to desaturate it. So I just keep moving that around until I feel like I have all the color out. And we're going to color over the top of it anyways, so okay, so now we have that done. That's how you use the sponge tool. I use it a lot. If someone has really red complexion even, I click on the sponge tool, I set it at about 25% and I click around their face just to kind of suck some of the redness out. Okay, next we're going to go up to layer 2. We're going to grab our gradient tool and we can customize our gradient here. So I could pick this one, but maybe I don't want those colors, or maybe I want just 2 colors. So I select this one, but I don't want it to look like Christmas. So we can double click right here on the green box and that will allow us to change that color. So I'm going to pick black. That looks good. You can experiment here. There's some cool stuff you can do with gradients. So you hit OK. And then right now I have mine on reverse because if I didn't, it would go from red to black. Or if I drag from the top, so if I click here, I'm going to be on this layer for my gradient. I want to change it to multiply. So I just went right up here. It says normal usually, and I change that layer to multiply. And then I'm going to drag my gradient down the page. Then if you decide, I like that gradient, but I want to try a different one, so we can add a new layer. You can actually turn that layer on and off like a light switch by clicking the eyeball. And then I can try something different, so maybe I want to see what this one looks like. Oh, we got to change that to multiply, or we won't see it. That's actually kind of cool. So you can decide what you want to do as far as colors, pattern of the gradient. Photoshop has more options than Pixlr, so you could click this radial one, and if you drag from the center out or from the center in, ooh, I like that. So you can change the pattern of the gradient. That one's kind of cool too, and experiment with that. So once you have it the way you want it, go ahead and file, save, and upload that to Canvas.